For good reason, proficiency is hugely important when it comes to instrument flying. You do not want to be rusty when it comes to flying low to the ground in IMC. So to keep that from happening, the FAA has laid down some guidelines. Now keep in mind that these are the minimum requirements for currency. Being current is just the bare minimum. Being proficient is where you want to be. So you're considered current if within the last 6 calendar months before your flight, you've accomplished 6 instrument approaches, holding procedures, and intercepting and tracking courses through the use of navigational electronic systems. Now, one thing that gets a little confusing here is that holding procedures and tracking courses are plural. It doesn't say exactly how many you're required to do, but the plural nature implies that it's at least 2. Now, if you're flying an approach, such as an ILS, you're going to be intercepting and tracking courses to execute the approach anyway. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone there. Now, each of these must be accomplished in either actual instrument conditions or simulated instrument conditions. Logging approaches in actual instrument conditions has some strings attached. So according to the FAA, you cannot log an instrument approach unless actual instrument conditions exist at or beyond the final approach fix. So you could be flying for hours in IMC, intercept a localizer for an ILS to send through the initial fix, but right before the final approach fix, the weather clears up. According to the FAA, you cannot log that approach. But if it is IMC at the final approach fix, you do not have to fly the approach all the way to minimums to log the approach. You could intercept the glide slope at the final approach fix, decide to cancel the approach right afterwards, and still be able to log that approach. Simulated instrument conditions could be accomplished one of 2 ways, either through the use of a simulator or using a view limiting device in the plane with a safety pilot. Now keep in mind that unlike flying in actual instrument conditions, to log approaches using either of those 2 methods, you have to fly the approach all the way to minimums to satisfy the FAA requirement. As of 2018, the FAA has adjusted their stance on simulator usage for IFR currency requirements. Now, an instrument-rated pilot can use either a full flight simulator, FFS, a flight training device, FTD, or an aviation training device, ATD, to accomplish those currency requirements. Now, since this is currency and not instruction, a flight instructor does not need to be present, but you will need to log the time, the specific task completed, and the type and identification of the simulator used. The original way of simulating instrument conditions is in the airplane using a view limiting device, like foggles. The caveat here is that you'll need to be accompanied by a qualified safety pilot. Unfortunately, this can't just be any Joe Schmo off the street. Your safety pilot must hold at least a private pilot certificate with the appropriate category and class ratings of the specific aircraft being flown. If the safety pilot is not acting as pilot in command, they do not need to be VFR current. Now, what does need to be current, though, is their medical certificate. If they're not acting as PIC, they have to have a current Class 3 medical or higher. If they are acting as PIC, which is something that will be established between the 2 of you before the flight, then they do have to be VFR current, and they can be operating under basic med. The last rule is that they must occupy the other control seat. They can't just be in the back looking out the window, and your airplane is going to need to have dual controls. If you're using this method, make sure you log both your name and the safety pilot name in your logbook for the flight. Now let's go back to that time frame thing. So you have to accomplish these required tasks within the last 6 calendar months. So let's say you've accomplished all of these tasks in December and you want to fly an IFR flight with your friends in July. And since these are calendar months, you remain current through the last day in June. But starting July 1st, you're no longer instrument current, and you now fall into an additional 6-month period where you may accomplish the required currency tasks using any of the previously mentioned methods. Remember, you're not allowed to fly as PIC under instrument flight rules until you've accomplished these tasks, so your friends are going to have to wait. Now, if another 6 months go by, then the only way to regain your currency is by accomplishing an instrument proficiency check, or IPC. An IPC must be accomplished with a CFII, and it's a full review of all the knowledge and procedures needed to fly in instrument conditions. Think of it like a mini check ride, consisting of a ground portion and a flight portion. And you can find all the information listed in an IPC in the ACS. So let's review. In order to be IFR current, within the last 6 calendar months, you must have executed 6 approaches, performed holding procedures, intercepted and tracked courses using navigational electronic systems. You can accomplish these in either actual conditions or simulated instrument conditions. If not accomplished within the last 6 calendar months, you have an additional 6 calendar months where you're still not current, but you can accomplish the tasks without an instructor. Now, if a full 12 months pass without doing the required procedures, an instrument proficiency check is the only way to become current. There will be some questions on the test about these, so make sure you have a good grasp on what it takes to stay current.